As I'm here, people were crying. Why should Sheik Gumi open his mouth and say it was an empty corpse? All Nigerian lawyers, I'm begging you in the name of Jesus Christ, those that have the heart of Christ, the Son, we are going to sue Sheik Gumi.
Famous Plateau State-based pastor Ezekiel Dachomo has expressed deep anger and frustration over a statement attributed to Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, a prominent Islamic cleric in Nigeria. The controversy began when Gumi allegedly denied the existence of a Christian genocide happening in the country. Instead, he reportedly claimed that Christians were burying empty coffins to deceive the world into thinking they were victims of genocide. Now, for many, this statement was not just reckless, it was deeply hurtful. For Pastor Ezekiel Dachomo, it was an insult that could not go unanswered. In a video that quickly spread across social media, Pastor Dachomo appeared visibly upset, calling for action. He was clear in his message. Why should Sheikh Gumi open his mouth and say it was an empty corpse? He voiced the grief of countless families who had lost their loved ones to these violent attacks and the pain of those who had to bury their dead in a situation where there was already so much loss. Dachomo's response was not just an emotional outburst, it was a rallying cry for justice. He called on Nigerian lawyers to unite in a lawsuit against Sheikh Gumi, asking them to join forces in the name of justice and truth. Pastor Dachomo's appeal was not just for lawyers to act, it was a plea for those with a heart for justice, a heart for truth, to come together and right this wrong. All Nigerian lawyers, I'm begging you in the name of Jesus Christ, those that have the heart of Christ the Son, we are going to sue Sheikh Gumi, he stated. For Dachomo, this wasn't just about words. This was about standing up for the dignity of the dead and for the dignity of the people who have suffered and continue to suffer. We are going to sue Sheikh Gumi. These were not just words meant to gather attention. They were words meant to bring accountability, but it didn't stop there. Dachomo warned of the real danger that his words could unleash. He pointed to the risk of further violence, particularly with the possibility that Fulani terrorists could desecrate the graves of the victims. These terrorists, as Dachomo suggested, might seek to prove Gumi's claim that these were empty corpses. It is a chilling prospect, one that highlights the extreme lengths to which some groups may go to perpetuate their agenda and sow division. In his call to action, Pastor Dachomo also issued a direct warning to the youth in Plateau State. Make sure you guard it, he urged, because Fulani terrorists are still coming back to remove the corpse. This was not just a plea for action, it was a call for protection of the dignity of the victims and the integrity of the evidence that stood as a reminder of the atrocity. Pastor Dachomo's words weren't just about the dead, they were about the living, the survivors who have already suffered enough. The message was clear. The community must be prepared to protect what they have left, even if it's just a grave, from further desecration. As this situation unfolds, it's clear that the tension in Plateau State is far from over. Pastor Dachomo's comments set the stage for what could be a wider legal and social conflict, one that brings into focus the growing divisions in the country. The idea that some would claim these atrocities are fabricated or that the pain of the families is a lie is a dangerous narrative. Gumi's comments, whether intentionally or not, have the potential to stir further unrest. And for Pastor Dachomo, this was not just a slight against the victims, it was an insult to the very idea of justice, to the idea that the truth must be heard and that those who speak out for the voiceless must be supported. It's a dire situation, one that calls for all hands on deck. For many, Pastor Dachomo's call for legal action is more than just a fight for the truth. It's about showing solidarity with the victims, giving a voice to those who have suffered, and ensuring that the history of what happened is not erased or dismissed by those in power. The deaths, the violence, the pain, it cannot be ignored and it must not be minimized. But there's another side to this issue too. one that deserves attention. Pastor Dachomo's warning about a war on the horizon is not just about a literal conflict. It's about the emotional and psychological toll that these types of statements take on a community already on edge. When someone of Gumi's stature denies the very real pain that people are experiencing, it doesn't just harm the families of the victims, it harms the entire community. It feeds the divide, stirs distrust, and makes a reconciliation that much harder. The response to Gumi's statement has already sparked debates, but there's something deeper at play here. It's not just about a single comment from a religious leader. It's about the larger question of how we, as a society, deal with the truth when it's inconvenient. How do we handle situations where narratives clash, where one side claims victimhood and another denies it? Can we find common ground, or will these divisions continue to grow? In the midst of all this, Pastor Dachomo's call for action is a reminder that silence is not an option. Silence allows for lies to spread, for injustice to continue unchecked. But speaking out, whether through legal action or public discourse, is how we begin to move forward. It's how we begin to heal and rebuild. Pastor Dachomo's words might seem harsh to some, but they are a necessary call for justice in a time when that justice is hard to come by. As we reflect on this, let's remember that the real issue is not about one person's words. It's about the lives that have been lost, the families that are grieving, and the communities that are living in fear. It's about ensuring that the truth is heard and that justice is served. Pastor Dachomo's message is loud and clear. We must stand up, speak out, and take action. The fight for justice is never easy, but it's a fight that is worth taking on. Now, as we continue this conversation, there's a deeper layer that's worth exploring. The tension between truth and perception is always a complex issue, especially when dealing with matters of life and death. Pastor Dachomo's outrage is not simply about defending the dead, but also about defending the dignity of the living, particularly those who continue to suffer. The reality on the ground in places like Plateau State is far from the picture painted by those who remain disconnected from the everyday struggles of these communities. It's clear that what's happening in Plateau isn't isolated. These events are part of a much larger security and socio-political crisis that's been brewing for years. The constant attacks, killings, and displacement have left scars that are now deeper than ever. These are not just numbers in the news. These are real people with families, homes, and dreams, all shattered by violence. When someone in a position of influence like Sheik Gumi denies the reality of what's happening, it doesn't just disrespect the victims, it erases their pain. This kind of denial only makes it harder for the healing process to begin. How can a community rebuild if they are constantly being told their pain doesn't matter, that their losses are exaggerated or worse, fabricated? It's a cruel twist to tell those who have already experienced the worst that their grief is just an illusion. It's hard to understand how anyone, let alone a religious leader, could make such a statement in the face of so much evidence to the contrary. But Pastor Dachomo's call for action is more than just a response to one statement. It's a warning to everyone who chooses to turn a blind eye to what's happening in Nigeria. It's a reminder that justice must always be pursued, even when the truth is inconvenient. And when those in power, whether in religious circles, politics, or security, refuse to acknowledge the suffering of the people, it's up to the people themselves to fight for that recognition. Now, you may be wondering what happens next. Will Pastor Dachomo's call for legal action lead to a breakthrough, or will it be another example of how hard it is to get real justice in this country? The truth is, it's hard to predict. Legal battles are often long and drawn out, especially when they involve powerful figures. But what we can be sure of is that this case will shine a spotlight on the deep divisions in Nigerian society and the challenges of confronting violence and injustice. In the coming weeks and months, we'll likely see more voices join this debate. We'll hear from more religious leaders, political figures, and community leaders. Some will support Dachomo's call for action, while others may continue to deny the reality of the violence. But the more people speak out, the harder it becomes for the truth to be ignored. In the end, it's not just about Pastor Dachomo's fight or Sheik Gumi's controversial statements. It's about all of us as a nation. If we continue to let division and misinformation cloud the truth, we will only make it harder to achieve peace. But if we stand together, demand justice, and hold those in power accountable, there's a chance we can begin to heal the wounds that have torn this country apart. So, I ask you, what are you willing to do? What role will you play in demanding justice for those who have suffered and continue to suffer? The fight for truth is never easy, but it's one that we must all be a part of. Whether you're in Plateau State, Abuja, or anywhere else in the country, it's time to stand up, speak out, and demand that justice is done. As we wrap this up, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Pastor Dachomo's call for legal action will lead to any real change, or do you believe it's just a symbolic gesture? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more discussions like this. We'll be keeping an eye on this case as it develops and providing more updates as they come. As always, thank you for your time, and until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop seeking the truth.